everyone again. So today we're going to be doing Moana, just a list of some of the stuff you'll be needing for this tutorial. So as usual, we're going to go ahead and start out with our Moana printout and some tracing paper as well, so we can go ahead and trace the image onto the tracing paper. And since this sheet is pretty big, I went ahead and taped together 2 pieces of tracing paper so that I would be able to fit Moana entirely underneath it. And as always, you can go ahead and tape down the tracing paper so it doesn't move out of place, because that can get pretty annoying, but that's really up to you. So now, pretty basic stuff. We're just going to go ahead and trace on Moana onto the tracing paper using a pencil. You can use a lead pencil if you'd like, but personally, as always, I prefer just a regular number 2 pencil, but again, that's really up to you. Make sure to get every detail. As you can see, I did miss a spot there, if you can notice that. So make sure you get everything onto the tracing paper. Now go ahead and carefully remove the tape, if you use tape, and separate it from the original Moana printout. And there you should see everything laid out, and I left a big space there because I'm going to use real straw, but you can trace that onto if you wanted to paint it. So for this specific project, I just used 3 colors of foam because I wanted to be able to paint. Moana has a lot of colors, so I started off with brown for her skin tone because that's about the right skin tone. And of course, as always, rubbing on the tracing paper so I can get a mirrored image of the Moana printout that I traced onto the tracing paper and get it onto foam. And since it's a little darker than usual, I went ahead and outlined it with my pencil again so that I don't lose the color, that outline when I smudge and touch the foam and such. Then I went ahead and outlined it again with marker once it was like set in stone and I liked the way it looked. I just used a regular thin marker. There are foam markers which work a lot better. This one was drying out on me constantly, but again, that's up to you. So once again, pretty basic, just me cutting. Just be careful not to stop and make sure you're cutting as straight as possible because it will look odd if you aren't. You don't want it to look weird. And make sure you always leave a space again because you're gonna have to glue that behind the skirt. Like always, just think the legs obviously have to go underneath the skirt, so you have to leave out a little space to glue on the skirt so it doesn't look all weird. So make sure you always leave that space there. So yay, once again, we're gonna have to go ahead and tape it down, and you guessed it, rub again. Just go ahead and rub. You're gonna hate the pain this makes you feel because it can be very annoying on your fingers, but this is the only way, so sorry folks. So just go ahead and rub it down until, once again, it reflects onto the foam. White is pretty easy. You should get it pretty easily though. And there you have it. You can see it pretty clearly. And once again, outline it with your marker because you don't want to lose any of that pencil. It does fade away the more you touch it, so you don't want that happening because that just makes things a lot more complicated. So make sure you outline it with your little foam marker or any marker that's thin enough to make those perfect designs because Moana's skirt is pretty complicated. So I can't stress this part enough. You always want to make sure that you're laying out your pieces of foam and that everything is coming together nicely. So I always try to, once again, think and put everything where it's supposed to go so it looks normal. You want to do this a couple times throughout this process so you make sure you're cutting everything perfectly and you're not cutting too much of something or too less of something or whatever. So make sure you're constantly doing that. And here it's pretty basic, just painting. I made like an ivory color with a little bit of yellow and white because her skirt, it's not really white, it's more like a cream. So that's kind of like the color I was trying to get here. And basically just try to be as careful as possible with a very, very thin paintbrush. It's the only way to do things perfectly. And as I said before, you're gonna have to do this quite a few times. So once again, I'm just trying to put everything together, but this should be the final time. So I'm just trying to see how it looks before I glue it all together. And so far it's looking pretty good. That's what you want it to look at, like, top over her body, the little belt over her skirt, and so on. So I went ahead and got like these little hula skirts from Dollar Tree to be specific, and that's what I used for this part. I thought it would look a lot more realistic, and it was only $1. I cut it and I went ahead and tried to make it the perfect size for Moana. And yeah, so you're gonna go ahead and measure to make sure it looks good with the legs and such, and you're gonna want to measure that. And here you can see the sort of final product. Well, not entirely final, but already with the legs done, everything looks pretty good. And now I'm going ahead and once again rubbing on the foam to reflect the hair. And this part's really awful because you're dealing with black foam and it's hard to see, so you're gonna have to do the lines really nice and thick so you can go ahead and get a nice perfect image of her hair. And then again, I can't stress this enough, please use the black marker. You do not want to lose any of that because you will just have to start from scratch and it can be very tedious and very, very annoying. And I used an X-Acto, I believe is how it's pronounced. Please don't judge me on that. For this to cut out like basically the part right above her forehead. Because if you look at the image, you know, her hair is over her forehead, but towards the left hand side, you know, that hair is behind her. So I kind of had to cut like a little hole along with like a little small sideburn or whatever you want to call that little piece of hair right by her ear. So, you know, again, me with my perfectionism, I had to do this perfectly. So I went and used that little knife, and it is my best friend for things like this. Then once again, just going ahead and coloring in her eyebrows, her face, which is the part you need to be the most careful with. Once again, use a very, very thin brush for this because you want it to look perfect, and you know, if you mess up, it's really hard to go back. Though I do find myself sometimes being able to save foam if I use a baby wipe, and I can use that to clean up any acrylic paint, but it has to be done quickly, and if it's white, no guarantee it's gonna be fixed, but that can help for sure. So again, just try to make sure to stay in the lines, don't go too crazy, and paint as neatly and perfectly as you can. I mean, if you mess up like on the eyeballs, it's fine, you can always redo it, just don't go onto the brown. So there you have it. I painted the eyes, the lips. I went ahead and just cut little pieces of foam for the necklace and painted one blue and the other I left white to leave kind of like that stone look. And there you have it, Moana, finally done. And only about 8 minutes long, not too shabby. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Go ahead and subscribe, please do not forget, and give me a thumbs up, some likes, I'd really appreciate it. And any requests, once again, feel free to comment below, and I'll go ahead and do my best to fulfill your wishes. So thanks for dropping by, and don't forget to subscribe.